I think so. This is the other microphone.
Yes. It is not started on. It takes a moment.
Into that.
And
where-
Amanda.
And where are we supposed to stand?
So we're between Amanda and this podium are where that camera is. Anywhere between those two podiums.
Okay, are we gonna be blocking the, does it matter if we're blocking the screen?
You're not watching it.
But we can't go too far up, I assume, either.
I mean, I think if you go closer, you're better in terms of blocking the screen.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
but where's the camera? Like, how far do we have to walk? How far do we have to walk before we're not in the camera?
Yeah, probably
Not far.
probably this triangle. You just
Oh, there goes the camera. Okay. Somebody's camera. Oh, that's that one.
I look.
Okay. It is now. Okay, there we go. What do I need to do? Nothing. Okay. She should be able to see. She's able to see. Can she see everything now?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And I'm telling everybody, they can share questions or comments in the chat or with you privately, and then Melissa will share them. Is that right? Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, all questions or comments, should we ask, who's gonna manage all the questions? You, right?
The questions are coming in.
You mean the ones online?
Yes.
Delia is going to be managing those and putting them, typing them on the Miro screen, so they'll pop up.
Oh, she's gonna type it on the mirror.
Yeah.
Okay,
So she can see those, okay.
When she can address them.
but she won't see the ones that are coming into the public feed.
Delia, no. So Jen will have, if you have any questions or comments, can you just, and if you want, you can,
I'll get you the microphone, you can,
I'll be standing by you. You can-
okay.
okay.
Did you just come up today?
Yeah, just got up like maybe an hour ago. Sat in the office, started an email, and then left to come here.
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We're going to get started. It's about 6:03. We are broadcasting in Zoom land, and we have we'll have people joining us from outside the building. But thank you for taking your time tonight to be here. We are very happy to be at this point. We are going to step through ideas, plans, interesting concepts for what the next 100 years of Richmond Public Library could look like. So let me introduce some of the team. I have Gil O. He's with Steinberg Hart. This is a combination of two architectural firms, Steinberg Hart and KEi. KEi is our local firm. We have Marcus Thomas from KEi, Amanda Rent from Steinberg Hart, and we have another, Doug Moss, who's a principal at Steinberg Hart. Let me introduce some of our Library Facilities Committee team. Dexter Good is up front here. He is a City of Richmond Special Projects. Janet Woody is our Library Board of Trustees. She is our chair of our Facilities Committee. Ruth DeBoer is our Friends of the Library. And I have many other foundation members, so thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to turn the floor over to our experts, and they can kick us off and let us know where we're at in this process.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. I will tell you, we don't have any pyrotechnics as a part of this, so if you want to sit up closer, you're welcome to. All these tables are still socially distanced, but we would love for you to get up closer if you all would like to, because we do have a lot to share with you, and we also want it to be interactive. So you all, even though it's a big room and it's being broadcast, you should feel very comfortable just raising your hand and saying, I don't understand what you said, or I've got an idea that I want to share, because this is not intended to be strictly a presentation. It's really, we're very early in the process, and we want the interaction. So that's one of the reasons that we had this public meeting, is to make sure that everyone that wanted to could come and participate and provide ideas. We're also hoping the folks that are streaming will type notes and give us some commentary. We'll read some of those notes in order to make sure that everyone that's watching in right now will also be able to get an idea of what some of the questions are. And then also, this is all recorded. So I believe it's going to be on YouTube, is that correct, later? So please tell your friends if you hear something here tonight that you think is really compelling, which we hope you will, that you'll tell your friends or you'll tell other people that are interested in the library, and they can go and take a look at it on YouTube and still feel like they've been present during the whole process. So, Scott, thank you for introducing us. As Scott said, there are two architectural firms that are working on this master plan project. KEi is a local architect that's been involved in a lot of local public projects. And our office, we have offices all over the country, but one of the many things that we specialize in are public libraries and academic libraries. So Amanda and I in particular are really, we think, breathe, and sleep everything about libraries. So we are very excited to help you all think about a new vision for this downtown public library, because it means so much to the city of Richmond. It means so much to the users who come to this library. And it also is an opportunity to think about the people who aren't using this library, but that we all think maybe should be using this library. And we need to make sure that we are offering something to them that's going to be a really substantial draw, so that in addition to the people who are already using the building and the facilities on a regular basis, that we greatly expand the folks that are using it. So that's a really important part of this master plan. What you're not going to hear, in addition to no pyrotechnics, what you're not going to see and what you're not going to hear is an architectural design. We're not there yet. This is a concept. This is a master plan. So what we're really trying to do is to make sure we have a good foundation of understanding what is the vision for this building and this library, what are the space needs for this building, What is it we need to do to improve and alter this physical facility so that the community can use it and that it's better utilized by the community and that it's the services that are in this building are really more catered to what the community needs. And so that's a big part of the process of understanding that vision that you all want to create. This is not coming from us, this is coming from you all. The vision and the needs for the building. We then are going to begin to take some of that vision and take those needs and the ideas that you have for the next 20, 30, 40 years and begin to think about how can we do that on this plot of land that you have in downtown Richmond within this amazing building. You've got a lot of square footage here. A lot of libraries would just die with the amount of square footage that you all have. And we need to make sure that in a new plan, we are utilizing the square footage that you all have to the very best ability that we can. So we're going to develop what we call a concept design that will allow you all to see if the concept is in sync with what your vision is. And then we're also going to develop a cost estimate so that everyone knows what is it going to take in order to make this happen. And can we do it all at one time, or do we do it in phases? All of that will be thought through. We're also going to talk a little bit tonight about sustainability and the importance of building a sustainable building that helps reduce operating and maintenance costs on a day in, day out basis, that helps reduce the load on our planet for a building of this size. And you'll hear a little more details about that. This effort is about a 6-month process. So we have started this in April of this year. We hope to finish by the end of September of this year. And there's a lot of things that we're doing through this process. Some of it we've already started. So let me just share with you what we call as architects the scope of the work. So this is the work that we're going to be doing to help establish the vision and to help identify all those needs I just talked about. In addition to the vision, Marcus in a minute is going to talk about the guiding principles. What is it that are the most salient points that we need to accomplish as a part of this new plan to make this building enriched for the city of Richmond? We've also already started a community survey. Some people did this online. Some people filled out sheets of paper. We've gotten some amazing and very positive responses, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We've also done what we call benchmarking. We've looked at other libraries that are of similar size in similar sized communities that have some of the similar characteristics of Richmond. And we've looked at that benchmarking so that we can compare where you all are in this building in comparison to others. And a lot of times, political leaders like to know, where do we stand in relationship to some of our peers? And we'll talk a little bit about that effort tonight as well. The space program, understanding how much space do we need for all the things that we want to have in the building, that will be a part of this process. And then, as I said before, developing a concept design and developing the cost for these things. So let me stop there, see if anyone has any questions before Marcus talks about some of the initial ideas of the guiding principles. Anything we've left out or things that you're curious about? Yes, sir. Amanda, you want to talk about our locations of the different libraries and plan studies?
Sure. So we do libraries all over the United States. One of our most recent planning studies for another main library was actually in Richmond, Texas, which is just north of Dallas, Texas. So we just wrapped that up. We've also done one for a library in Canada, just outside of Ontario. But then we've built a lot of library buildings as well. And recently we've done some in Lenexa, Kansas. We're working on one in Oklahoma City at the moment. We've done others in Texas. So we really do them all over the US and the East Coast as well. Some in California. So we're really all over the place in terms of library design. So kind of have a handle on nationally, what are those trends and what are those things that have lasted the test of time as well? Because trends aren't always necessarily what to strive for. We want to make sure that they'll last the test of time as well. So we feel like through our years of experience, we have a pretty good handle on that, what folks are doing, where the future of libraries is heading, and what we need to do to help this one with that future.
And some of those have been branch libraries and some of those have been main libraries like this one. So we've done the Cleveland Main Library, the Los Angeles Central Public Library, the Boston Public Library. So some of those are the main libraries and then lots of branches. Thank you for that question. Marcus, do you want to talk a little bit about the guiding principles?
Absolutely. Good afternoon again, everyone. Thanks again for coming out this evening. As Doug mentioned earlier, we're really at the beginning stage of the process. And while we as architects love to design, this is truly my favorite part, is getting to hear from the community about what you want so that we can make sure that our design is sustainable throughout time. Because at the end of the day, this building is to serve you and not us. And so here are a few of the guiding principles that we're basing this master plan on, and it's going to really set the path for how we move forward. We want to create a true reflection of and resource for all in the Richmond community. We want to create an inclusive environment that's welcoming and inviting to everyone who may and really desires to use the public library system. We want to be welcoming and inclusive for a broad range of patrons, including out-of-town visitors. We want to create somewhere that's a destination, somewhere for people to go, somewhere for people to be excited to go, somewhere for individuals in the DC area and Hampton Roads area to travel to maybe gain resources that they don't have in their own public library system. We want to create a transparent and modernized building which maintains the historic beauty while being adaptable for the future. This library has been here for a really, really long time. And it's been added on to a few times. And over the years, for better or worse, there's an aesthetic that's been created to the point to where it's become a staple in the Richmond community, a staple that we don't necessarily want to change that much. We just want to make it a little bit better, a little more future-proof. We want to be an innovative leader for all libraries nationwide. Doug mentioned benchmarking earlier. That's where we compare this branch to other branches and compare resources and services and what they're doing. We want to be a library that other people point to and say, I want to be like Richmond Public Library. And then last but not least, we want to be sustainably designed for equitable design. Again, going back to a place for all individuals to come and utilize the services and the resources the library has to offer. We want to be a welcoming environment for all. We don't want anyone to feel isolated or excluded from the programs that we have to offer here in the Richmond Public Library. So with that said, I mean, this is just a starting point that we created. We're interested in finding out if there's anything that we missed, if there's any one of these bullet points that can be added here. Please, the floor is open for questions, comments, concerns. What do you see as a guiding principle for your public library? Not everybody at once.
So I saw a note come in.
Okay.
I saw a note come in online on the chat that was about,
Use your microphone, Amanda.
I saw a note come in on the chat about parking issues, so I was gonna put that one on here. I think parking is a concern that we can put on this list, but anyone else have?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it ought to be a source for all cultural activities, music and dance and painting, lighting. And I know I come to all the Gelman concerts, etc. And I think just more of all the arts here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Rooms for it, lessons given here,
Absolutely.
chamber music.
Oh, that's a great idea. Love it. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
They talked about the Freedom of Information Act. So what does transparent mean?
So transparent, and I'll speak for myself, and I'll let Amanda, Gil, chime in if they like. Transparent means there's no question to be asked about what the library is doing. Right? There's all programs are for all people, and thus all programs will be advertised the same to make sure that everyone has the ability to react and respond. We understand that there's a vast majority of different cultures and communities in the city of Richmond. And everybody doesn't have the same access as everybody else. There's a large swath of our community that doesn't have access to internet and computers and Wi-Fi. So how do we get to those individuals? How do they learn about the resources and services the library has to offer? Well, you have to meet them where they are, right? And so that's what transparent really gets down to the root of, making sure that everyone is included and is able to access the information the library has to offer.
I think one of the other aspects we've been thinking about is, we, talking about the parking issue, when we arrived, we parked in the parking garage, catty corner to this. And as you walk up to the building, I think also transparent starts from people who aren't yet in the library as well, right? So this building, I mean, it's magnificent, it's beautiful, it's tall, it's intimidating to some people, right? Like, until you walk up and walk through the doors, if you're physically standing in the space, you don't even have a clue what's happening inside of these walls a lot of the time. And so understanding transparency from that aspect, right? How do we project some of the wonderful activities and the things that are happening within the building on the outside of the building? How do we encourage more people to feel comfortable coming up to the building, exploring, saying, oh, I wonder what's happening in there. So I think it's completely what Marcus said, and it's also drawing that out and bringing it out to the outside to encourage passersby to interact with the building as well in a way that I don't know that they're doing at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So the American Library Association has some big notions about library construction and renovation. And those categories include things like climate. Because a lot of people say, oh, you have to make sure it's green. So that's something. So maybe you guys do a lot of library work and can address how you are incorporating the standards, ideals from the American Library Association with this bill. Obviously, diversity is an issue, society, people, things, cultural issues. But I think also there are other issues that are big issues that new libraries should address.
Absolutely. And you actually, at that point, you actually get on the next agenda item, which is keeping net zero in mind.
Marcus, did you plant her in the audience?
That's a really awesome segue. And I'll touch on that. We have a few more questions. I'll touch on that in a second. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am. Put your hand up.
I'm thinking about, as someone who visits libraries in every city that I vacation in, what is it that makes us special here in Richmond? So we're talking about guiding principles. We're not getting into the nitty-gritty right now. We're talking about like broad, but thinking really about what makes Richmond, Richmond. And so how do we put the main branch of Richmond Library on the map to come visit us, because we have something that that they can't see anywhere else. So I'm thinking local artists. And that, I mean, you talk about the aesthetic of this building. Intimidating is one word. Sterile. Like, so how can we incorporate as a guiding principle the local color and everything that is RVA, which is our trademark.
It seems that in this physical space, we do have to marry what libraries are becoming as both community and social centers, but also maintain that traditional program of the library of being that place where it is the reliable place for information, and to know that it's reliable as opposed to just.
Very good. That's right.
Yeah, let's take it up to touches on what the previous lady said, and I know for one particular library, but consideration, like you said, for all people, and whether you have a devoted room or floor or section to the homeless, because they will always be with us in a sense, and a resource room for them for jobs, even for cleaning, for showering, whatever the case may be. but just something of that consideration.
I'm thinking of parking, thinking of parking. And, perhaps, I'm a member of the downtown Y here, and they have 3 parking lots. They're pretty much used, but, maybe partnerships with the Y, with the Jefferson Hotel and even Pearsall, so, legal, lot right over there, maybe partnerships with them to have places for park.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Those are all fantastic comments. All fantastic comments. And so what's gonna happen?
Marcus, another one just came in off
Another
the,
one.
but I didn't read it all when it was going out, just as I looked up and saw it.
I think Julie's getting some of those. But I wanted to ask, I mean, I think all of these are great topics and all of these are topics that we can think through, but do any of you have any specific thoughts? Like, what do you think makes Richmond Richmond? Or how do you think, what is that spirit that you would love to see like brought into the space? I mean, we'd love to hear that. So do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, we're happy.
I mean, I don't know, but yeah, sure.
Please,
Yeah. So I'm rooftop bars, right? Like we have several riding and walking area. What if the library had a green rooftop with, comfy seating and umbrellas and statues by some of our local artists. We also are known for our murals. And I really can't imagine this space in a renovation without some kind of mural. I know that for the summer reading program, we're doing the mending walls program, so I guess there is a mural on the way. But those are just some of the things that I think about. I also, and I don't know if this is guiding principles or where it goes, but like an outdoor space. Like I think about some of the other libraries that I go to when I don't come to Richmond, and there's a very welcoming outdoor space, and I think Richmond has a great outdoor space, but I've never been in there. So how do we incorporate that space into like an additional room, include it in the square footage when you're talking about what we're going to do with all this space? How do we ensure that that outdoor space is part of the library and not just something that's out there?
That one, two.
So, okay, so, the history of Richmond for libraries is interesting in that the African American community has a separate library, which I'm sure you all are. So if this is going to be renovated, clearly there has to be some kind of movement, consideration, commitment to how you're going to incorporate that notion with the construction of this library. I mean, I just can't envision, this place being renovated and nothing happens with the road back. Or, and when I say nothing happens, I mean, no discussion, no consideration, but I think that that's part of the question you asked about, what about the historical piece of it?
Yeah.
That's huge.
You agree? You agree?
Good.
Well, I was thinking about that. Richmond is a very historical city. People come here because they want to engage in history. And so I was thinking, if you're a stranger coming to Richmond and the library is a source of information, that to constantly have a space and a place where there's Richmond history being conveyed. So it's some sort of room where space where people can come and they'll say, okay, we're gonna stop and every Saturday or every Sunday with a 12 o'clock, storyteller or a tour or something that helps us to better understand Richmond. And with maps so that people can go, wow, here's something I can walk away and I can go and see this place because I've been educated in the library. Come with their kids.
Yeah. Just favorite a place of family.
Just some thoughts about, what you said, what makes Richmond, and even though I've been here quite a while, I'm not from around here person. And so there's history, and people around here are serious about their history. So it's a serious place. But at the same time, and it's laid back. People move a little slow. It's hot. But it's also a fun and funky place. So marry all those things together.
Richmond certainly has a certain vibe and feel that a lot of other cities don't have. That's a good Richmond fun. And great. And so that's certainly, the many questions, that's something we want to bring into the plan. How do we engage with that culture? How do we engage with the surrounding? How do we make sure that, everyone included, nobody? Well, absolutely. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, so what's gonna happen is that we take all the notes from this initial Q&A session. Amanda and Gil are gonna walk through some other aspects of the plan. And then after this part, we're gonna come back to the guiding principles to see if anything has been added, if your mind has changed a little bit. We're just gonna compare some notes to see how you feel a little later on after this discussion. Keep on. Okay? Oh, I forgot. Yeah. There was a comment about sustainability. What we're going to do, I mean, the city of Richmond has a net zero initiative for all new buildings, right? They want to make sure that, they do. And so we're going to keep that in the back of our mind as we go through the design process to make sure that we are creating a sustainable building, and the library, the main branch of the Richmond Library, is going to right side of the phone.
So along with the this meeting with the community, we also submitted a survey, as Doug mentioned, for the community to fill out. So that was available online. There were paper copies available at the different branch libraries. And again, what we are trying to accomplish during this part of the process is to get as much feedback from the community as possible. So we've got a few slides up here that show some of the responses that we've gotten to this point. I think to this point, we've gotten over 600 responses to the survey. So this is kind of just an introduction to the responses to this point. And Amanda will kind of walk us through some of the bigger question that we went through.
Yeah, so as Bill said, this is still somewhat in progress, but we wanted to share with you all kind of the results so far. And then again, we'd love to hear if you agree with the results, if you disagree with the results, or if you have additional comments to make, right? Some of you may have taken the survey, so you'll begin to see what some of the other responses were just visually. But the first question was, how important is the library to you and your family? And 84% of respondents said that it was very important, or somewhat or a little important to their family. So that was very positive to hear that people, generally positively think that this really is an important resource for them to maintain and to go forward. So you can scoot over just a bit. And then how would you rate the library? And again, overwhelming percent either responded great, 44%, or good, 47%. So it is, people do have positive kind of connotations with the library and with the space. The next question was about, what is one of your kind of most important aspects of how you use the library? What do you utilize this space for? And so overwhelmingly, this was one of those questions where you could select more than one response, which is why the percentages don't add up to 100. So 92% of respondents picked that they come to check out materials. They come to check out books, DVDs, audio, etc. 38% come for cultural programs and events. All of the red bars are programs and events, whether cultural, children's, music, or technology. So you can see there's a big chunk of people coming for the really rich programming that the library has to offer. 25% of people also use the office services, things like printing, copying, faxing, and notary. And then 25% come just to use the internet, right? There's a ton of computers upstairs, and a lot of people still don't have access to the internet. I know we got a lot of responses on the back end when they were closed for the pandemic. You know, that was a struggle for some people, not having that access to those computers, to that internet. And then a lot of people, a quarter also just come to meet a friend or be a part of the community, right? We did see a lot of responses in the open end about just general loneliness or, you know, feeling like they don't have that connection, that social connection. So the library is so important to foster and to support that for them. Some just come to use the restroom. I mean, being from New York City, I can never find a public restroom to use, it seems. So sometimes, you know, that's nice, right? And then being right inside the front door, being welcoming, that being encouraged, can be really helpful for some, in fact, that just don't necessarily have that access. 20% come to study or to take classes. 9% only use the online portion of the library, maybe downloading an ebook or streaming services. And then 4% utilize the social services. And then some of the write-ins we got included things like coming to do research and being supported by the library staff, just the ebook kind of use, using it for meeting rooms or room rentals, coming to see art exhibits or film showings, kind of those cultural aspects that we had mentioned, or even just tutoring, right? A lot of tutors like to use this kind of a safe space for their tutoring. And then craft kits during the pandemic, or even just help applying for jobs, which is kind of part of those social services. So really got a fantastic response to let us know how people are currently using the library space. And then we asked them, how do they find out about those library programs specifically? How does the word get out to the community? With things like 60% saw it on the library website, 30% from signs and flyers, 25% social media, the library newsletter that goes out, that was a pretty big response, or even just word of mouth from the library staff or the community. Or the next two. Sometimes they might have seen something in the newspaper, and then the other items were things like the Friends e-newsletter, the Next Door app, the Museum District newsletter, or just happened to be at the library and saw an event happening. So we find that very important because as you're promoting new services, new things that we might be adding, understanding how to promote those and get that word out is going to be critical to making those a success for the future. And then we also were curious about getting to the library, right? We know that parking is a huge concern. And so 70% of people said that they will use a car or carpool to get here. 52% of people may also walk to the library at a given time. 17% bike. 11% use public transportation. And then 3% said maybe a car service like an Uber or a Lyft to get to the library. And so thinking about how people approach the building, how are they coming up to the space, and what that kind of trip to the library, what that experience is like before they even, you know, get into the front doors. That's important to understand what we're doing, you know, to the outside of the building, signage, graphics, any of those kinds of things. How do you physically make it into the building? And then we got to a bunch of open-ended questions. And so these are very hard to very quickly distill down. But what we did is we took all the responses and we looked at what were the most popular responses, right? The most popular phrases, the most popular words that people were using to respond to these questions, just to give you a snapshot of what we were hearing. So when we asked people what do they value most about the community of Richmond, and this is again completely open-ended, you could write in absolutely any response you wanted. The number one word that people said was the diversity of the Richmond community, that really makes this community rich. The people of Richmond, that they're friendly, you know, that there's a kindness here, there's that shared culture, their neighbors. A lot of people did mention actually that they felt safe here. There was a sense of safety and welcoming. And you can see just the host of things that people kind of loved about the Richmond community. And that was really encouraging to see because making it welcome for all was one of the guiding principles that we kind of established. So we were impressed to see, that's what people really value about the community as well. So it is important to bring that in.
Amanda, you might just talk about the size of the font.
Oh, sure.
What it relates to.
So these are word clouds, and I didn't say that before, but the bigger the word is on here, it's proportionally related to the amount of times you saw it in the response. So like the word diversity maybe was mentioned 90 times, right? As opposed to a smaller word that was mentioned 50 times. And so here, when we ask, what do you value most about the Richmond Public Library? The overwhelming response was obviously the books. People really liked the materials. But then kind of a secondary response was just the access to information. That was very important and very valuable to them. That things are free, but they don't cost money, right? There is so much really rich information here. Buying every one of these books, buying these DVDs, buying these ebooks, paying for this programming or these classes, like just the amount of value that's created in this building is just really, really fantastic. So those were some of the main ones. People love the staff, and to make a lot of you feel good. That was another item mentioned a ton, or just all of the resources here in addition to some of the other items that you see on the screen. And when we asked them, what did they feel, that how does the library benefit the community? Again, it was similar, right? The amount of resources that it provides for the community, the fact that it was free, the learning and the knowledge that it represents, and then computers, like we said, computers are still really big. A lot of people still cannot afford their own computers, or just internet service is so expensive that those were items that they really value. Some of the other ones were things like the programs, the education, the safe space, and just the quiet as well. And when we ask them what challenges do you, your neighbors, and your community face, the biggest responses were systemic racism, were affordable housing, were things like poverty. We saw safety and crime as well, so it's very clear that some percentage of the population does feel very safe, and some percentage of the population may understand struggles with feeling safe. Then we saw things like the jobs, the traffic, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, homelessness, guns, public transportation, food insecurity. So there was a lot of things that the community is struggling with and it's facing. And so thinking about how could the library, again, expand and begin to help provide resources for some of these items is an interesting thing for us to ponder. And then when asking them specifically about their use of the library during the pandemic, what did they appreciate having access to? Some actually, like I said, struggled with lack of access to the internet or computers. But again, people were very happy with the ability to place polls online, to do curbside pickup, and to still access the physical materials themselves during the pandemic, as well as some of the streaming and the virtual events that were offered. And so I think what we've learned through the pandemic is how do we keep that momentum going, right? There was some really horrible things with the pandemic, and there were some interesting things, some opportunities that it kind of introduced to all of us. Just today, trying to do the setup of some people being virtual, some people being in person is something we probably never would have done before the pandemic. So it's a pretty interesting kind of opportunity that's given to all of us. And then I think one of the last questions was, if you could change one thing about this library, what would it be? And here we didn't see any one thing jump out as like the most popular thing. You can see the responses were much more kind of scattered, but additional programming specifically around children and teens we saw, more activities, classes, and community events. We did see a lot of comments on longer hours, open on Sunday, open evenings, open, lots of different variations of that. A few people did mention the library environment itself, and then the book selection, right? Maybe it not having any copies of some of those popular reading materials you might want, maybe you had a bit of a long waiting list. And so those items, in addition to better Wi-Fi, longer computer time, are some of the things that we saw. And these we're really going to focus on thinking through how do we begin to address some of these topics that we're receiving in what we're doing. So we'd love to hear from you all. Is any of this for ideas, right? Are there any other things that you think is interesting interesting or you'd like to share with us in regards to these questions that we've shared.
Yeah, slide on challenges facing the community is the one that left the biggest impression. So I guess I'm challenged to figure out what we can do as a library to specifically address any of those things. It's a lot of opportunities to think beyond our usual to address some of the concerns.
Definitely. And I mean, I think that, you know, we mentioned homelessness, right? How are we? Oh, we have two microphones. I think the question earlier about how we're addressing homelessness in the building, right? I think that's something we can do, or how do we address some of these things to make them feel comfortable in the space and make others feel comfortable, because we know that the populations have specific needs, have specific desires, and so we need to design to that, right? We need to think about how are we addressing those people's needs and welcoming them while still managing to make the community or the existing library users also feel safe, also feel comfortable. And we have some experience, you know, with both of those things. How do we design the space so all feel comfortable and all feel coming in? And I think you're right. A lot of this is also about education, is about learning, is about knowledge. And so how can we begin to bring in not only the history of Richmond, good and bad history of Richmond, but some of that education, some of that knowledge. You know, the library has always been a place of learning and about advancing. And so I think that those are items that just this building can promote through programming, through displays of materials, through just kind of looking strategically at what's kind of being faced by the community members and how we can support that. Great, there's some stuff coming in online. I also think that then, the next aspect that we want to do is really jump to you all. We want this to be interactive, and we want to look to what your perfect day at the library might look like, right? So what are those items that you wish when you came to the library you had? I'm not sure there's rooftop bar, but there's things like hammock, there's things like outdoor spaces, outdoor stages, playgrounds. I don't know how easy it is for you all to read this. It's a little blurry for me, but hopefully you can say rooftop bar. There it is. Added it on the list. But things like good book, toys, gaming, yoga, sandwiches, food, Wi-Fi, pop-up shops, artwork, etc. Delia, I don't know how much you can zoom in, but the more you can zoom in, maybe zoom in to let it clear up and then zoom back out, and it might just be the projector. Oh yeah, that's better. Maybe we do a bit at a time. Anyhow, are there things that you're thinking of that you would love to see, or things that also there's no way you would want to see them, or you're intrigued, but you're not quite sure you would want these to be at your perfect day? And feel free to add to this, because this was just a general idea of what we might include. But we'd love you to get as creative as possible. But when we begin to think about that conceptual design that we mentioned, which we have not done yet, what are those items, those elements, those program types that you'd like us to see in addition to the types of spaces that are already within the library? So any thoughts on that?
Thanks. I guess I'm inspired by the Portland Library, maybe. I know they have where they have the cake pans I saw recently that are available for checkout. And so checking out things that wouldn't be considered media in the sense of books and video. So maybe tools, kitchen, like I said, cake pan, specialty things like that. And I know a certain amount of that is library funding, but it's a consideration in spacing as far as the design.
Yeah, just checking out materials that are unique materials.
And all of that stuff has to go.
Yeah. I've seen one of the library we worked with in Canada actually had a seed library where people would bring seeds in for plants and gardening, and they had like a catalog system of seeds, and it was a pretty cool system where if you checked out a seed, you were kind of expected to bring some back later, but it was a very cool thing. So there's a lot of really fantastic musical instruments, the baking equipment, all of those items.
Camping equipment.
Yeah, camping equipment, anything, right? Because some people can't necessarily afford to buy that for themselves. So having the ability for those free resources that are more unique, it's fascinating. I agree.
So I think one of the things we do really well at Maine especially is programming, but I see you can check out the cake camp, you can also come to a cake baking class.
Yeah.
So I know that I have learned to knit in the library, and then and felt, but if I had also been able to check out this material, like I could have practiced. You can always get a book, right? You can check out a cookbook, you can check out your cake camp, and you can learn to bake, like all those things put together.
Yeah, so like a food classroom, basically.
Yeah, but why stop there, right?
Yeah,
Like gardening and knitting and felting, and I don't know what else people like to do.
We have a library in West Texas that the food courses have become so popular that their classes are booked solid as a waiting list because they then serve the food after classes.
Right,
It becomes
right.
this amazing place and it becomes wine's involved. And so these are really
There were
community
some
oriented.
programs, again, like just thinking about space, like there's a lot of space here, and I'm not going to say whether or not it's being used efficiently or not, but I know that some time ago there were cooking classes at the hospital across the street that was in coordination with the library, that our newspapers just down the road, like what other community resources that are here can we bring into the library to truly make it a community space? And then when thinking about space, maybe it's just a thing I'm not trying to like it seems dark. Like how can we make it light filled and really comfortable and have different spaces? Like there should be quiet rooms. But there should be group study rooms, there should be meeting rooms, there should be, in the meeting rooms, there should be whiteboards or whiteboard tables or just different spaces for different activities.
Yeah, definitely. That access to that daylight is really critical for just how the space feels, right? And then agree with you, all of those kind of innovative things too, because as you bring cooking classes and music classes and those items into the building inherently gets a bit noisier. So then pairing that with dedicated quiet reading rooms or dedicated local history rooms, because it's really about how do you kind of zone that noise so that you're welcoming all, you're bringing in the community, you're getting that vibrancy, but then you're still also keeping space and holding space for those people that have always loved, that quiet library focused space. So that balance of everything, because we do want it to be this vibrant, interactive community space while still, meeting needs of other individuals. So I think it's really fascinating and compelling. And I love the whiteboard tables and whiteboard walls, just spaces for people to be creative and be imaginative and to have meetings for sure.
Amanda, maybe you can just kind of go through some of these to see if, because I'm not sure people are seeing them all, and maybe Delia, I'm texting with Delia to zoom in. So.
Yeah, so there's good books, there's toys, comfy chairs, 3D printers. I know you all have that innovation space upstairs. Sometimes you also get sewing machines in those innovation spaces, things like gardening, coffee or tea, a theater, someplace that's pet friendly, places to do exercise or yoga classes, places for data, newbies. We do have a hammock, which would be my favorite preference, I think. DJ spaces, outdoor stages. I think these are things that feel really cool on that roof garden that you mentioned. Playground, places just to take a nap, have a sandwich, access to Wi-Fi, maybe gather around a fireplace.
Or fire pit in your outdoor space.
Fire pit in the outdoor space, that's fantastic. Yeah, we have a wonderful fireplace in one of our libraries in Delaware, and everyone loves to gather around and sit around that space. Access to daylight and to views, I think you mentioned that. A business center, a place for parents and kids, a place to actually, perform music, right? Sometimes even local homeschool groups love to come together and have music classes in library spaces when there's rooms that can house that. pop-up shops, right? Community, people makers that need a place to sell their items that they're making, or local new businesses, right? Just starting out, how do we help promote them? Skateboarding, I don't know how many skateboarders you have on your front stairs, but I bet that could be a popular activity. Video conferencing, a place to learn about your history, about genealogy, a place to view artwork, business center, just access to power outlets to plug in your many devices people have.
And like charging stations too, so adapters for your Android or.
Yeah. All of the charging for all of it, yeah. These days, I mean, I can't even come up with all of the devices that people are having between their phones and their iPads and their tablets and their computers and the charging stations that allow them to have those cords, those connections to do that. Workbench for tools. I mean, I think you mentioned, the tools, a place to actually do, not only the technological things that you do in a maker space, but the actual physical kind of making of tools and equipment. Video games, lockers to hold items, and just a place for quiet or for crafting. We do have the kitchen on here, or just a garden, kind of a contemplative meditation garden. So these are some of the ideas up on the screen, but would love to hear from other folks if anyone else has thoughts.
I would love to see a recording studio.
Recording studio, yes.
And green screen.
And a green screen, yeah, kind of a media lab, right, where you can have all of that happening.
Just two thoughts occurred to me. One, talking about some of the other libraries around the country. I go to the Boston Public Library, often not to go to the library, but to see the art, and then I find myself sort of wandering. So there's something that brings people to the library that isn't necessarily sort of a traditional library.
Yeah, it's almost like an art gallery
Yeah.
type of, yeah.
And that's where I love the idea of the theater too, that nice times of the year, you can be outside in the outdoor space around the fire pit.
Almost like an amphitheater.
And then in either very cold or very hot times of the year, even down here showing something so people can either get warm or cold.
Yeah, or projecting kind of movies on the side of the building, 'cause, yeah.
Amanda, you might talk about music rehearsal rooms when people can't play in their own home.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times, right, especially during the pandemic, I don't know how many of you had a call with someone whose, child was practicing their, I don't know, trumpet or something. I had a couple actually with their piano or the trumpet room that was quite loud. I don't know how that parent got work done, right? But there's times where, you do have kids needing to practice instruments. And so we have seen some libraries do music practice rooms, right? So if you need a place to come and play and be noisy and feel like you're creative, play the drum, play your trumpet, play whatever you have. We do see a lot of that in addition to the recording studios, just places that you feel like you can get away from your home and you don't have somewhere to do that or be in that type of space.
So this is like not concrete, like coffee shop, cooking, but I would like to see structures that are not structures, like not a room for everything, but walls that collapse, walls that go up quickly, walls that can, or environments within this building that can change based on various things that happen in the city or, but
Sure, sort of
nothing
like,
oh, this is designated for quiet space, this is only children.
yeah, a place to just be creative, a place that has that built-in. Yeah.
Another idea is to connect this main library with some of the functions of the government agencies that are in Richmond and the activities that happen. For example, remember that old folk festival? I just love the folk festival. Of course we do. And it's great for Richmond. So how does the library, right downtown, with feet away from it, it should be part of that whole, where we're communicating with all these festivities that are happening and connected with it for somebody else.
Yeah. Any other examples? I think connecting to the local festivals is incredible. It's a really great way to get people in. And it's a really great way to just connect to the community.
The other piece is, as administrative, we don't have a lot of connection with the school system.
Yeah.
I think it would be a benefit for the school system to connect with us. Because there's so many resources here and potential And it's also related to spending money for the library. Those, you know, really pay for schools. But I think one of the efforts is to share all of the activities that are happening here with Richmond Public Schools, to help bring them to the table as we explore
Definitely.
what's happening, because there's so many advantages here with the children's program that we have, all the resources.
It's a great way to involve children and teens and to get them familiar with the library as well.
Program at Maine, but there's so many other students that would benefit. And one of the council people, this is our district right here, so early on in the planning would be very helpful to bring council members to the table to help discuss.
That's great, that's a great idea. Thank you.
One of my ideas was to have, and this is kind of a broad, goes beyond Maine. I think there is a relationship between schools and libraries. I have to defend that. I think there is a relationship. A lot of the relationship is within the branches. It doesn't necessarily happen in Maine. But what if our libraries were bus stops, school bus stops? And so the students could get their school bus at the end of the day to take advantage of some of these resources. I know that it came up in issues, but that public transportation is a huge issue in the city of Richmond. So I think one of the reasons that Maine maybe might not get as many kids as the branches is because it's not really a residential area. It's not in a heavily densely populated area. So we would have to come up with some creative ways to get the kids here.
Yeah, that school bus stop is really quite fascinating because, you know, sometimes kids would come here after school and their parents pick them up here when they get off work or whatever. So that's interesting. How do you get the kids here, physically here to the main branch? Yeah.
Well, we're somewhat related to that, and I believe that the school kids, do they get access to the public buses? But does that include the pulse?
It does. They have all high school students have free bus passes.
Yeah.
But the younger kids do not. But if it was a school bus stop, they're free, like,
Or Eagle weekend, whenever it's like, you know, draw a line from this bus.
Well, just signage, right?
Yeah,
Like, how do
yeah.
you get them? How do you get them here? How do you, you know, help them to understand, you know, the library is 6 feet away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we can sign bus stops.
Yeah. Signage is so important. Exactly. How do you get them here? Other thoughts? I feel like some of you at the back have been quiet. And if you want to say something that has nothing to do with what's on the screen, feel free to make a comment that has absolutely nothing to do with what's on the screen.
do you know of any libraries that are pet friendly?
I don't know that I do actually, but I'm ready for it.
And like
Yeah.
outdoor spaces, that would be great.
That's true. Outdoor space would be fantastic.
You
for
can have like
pets.
your bring your dog to library night, like if
Yeah.
they have it at the baseball diamond, where you bring your dog to the baseball game.
I
You
think
bring your dog to the library.
We do have that at a lot of universities, libraries,
Yeah.
where we have dog nights.
You could,
Yeah.
you could
Super
have like
successful.
a book group themed around dogs.
Yeah, we've had select like programming where it's like, yeah, read to your pet, or the university libraries will do like the therapy kind of animals, because loneliness in universities is a huge problem as well, right? For that age group, those people feeling like they're, you know, not having those social connections, and it's really a big need. So sometimes pets help bridge that gap for sure, you know?
I feel like almost like schools, you know, like we expect schools to do everything. And I know we want the library to do a lot of things, but I kind of start looking at this and saying, how can we group them so that we can see real possibility instead of, like, if you have like 100 things, who's gonna manage it? I mean, all of the stuff has to be managed. Somebody's got to manage the media room. Somebody's got to manage the, you know, the shower. If we're gonna have public showers, somebody's gonna have to manage the dog park. So how do we, you know, how do we be really realistic and look at how much money we really have, how we use the money, what are our real priorities for Richmond? Because it is a downtown public library. We do have a strong homeless population down here who needs the resources. And we don't have a lot of kids using this particular branch the way we do branches. So how can we make this renovation also support those branches and their ability to meet the needs of those kids, so that we're not having to drag everybody downtown so they can do their homework, but rather there's a space in their community library where they can access technology and have after-school events and those types of things. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be here, it's just how do we group these things so it makes more sense?
Yeah. I think you make an excellent point, and I think that's about, you know, the main library or the central library versus the branches, right? And so not every one of those has to have all of the same items, right? If we're meeting some of those needs for those specific communities at the other branches, you know, do we need a carbon copy of that in every single location, right? Or are the locations really about supporting the specific communities surrounding that area so that we can, you know, have bigger impact? And you're right, operations, how do you maintain these spaces? How do you train people to teach, you know, to use some of the systems or the equipment or the items in them? It is so key to this. And so that's exactly, you know, that's exactly correct. You know, we want to think big picture, we want to encourage that, and then we want to figure out what's practical, what can we afford, you know, work with the library and the board and the foundation to see, you know, how are we supporting the downtown community and what is the main library's needs, and how does that then, you know, get supported by the branches, right? Because it's a system, it's a whole, they're not, you know, individual items. So I think that's a fantastic point that you bring up, and I really appreciate it. Any other items for everyone? All right.
I have some questions. I have some questions for you all. So tell me what it's going to take to not have parking be an issue. You need to be able to drive into the building and get out at the table. So just, I mean, in all seriousness, tell me what it is that we need to do so that parking is not a barrier to coming to this library.
A parking deck that's free.
Free parking deck. And how close does it need to be?
Attached to the building.
Any other comments on parking? Would that do it? Free, you know, like.
It has to be free.
I think it's weird.
I know, it has to be free. I don't think it has to be on the property, but it definitely has to be adjacent.
Or dedicated library parking to the street somehow. That has longer parking times.
So the 2 hour, because there is 2 hour parking, but you have to pay for it, right? And there's some 2 hour parking that you don't have to pay for, but your tires are marked and you got to run out every 2 hours. Okay. So unlimited time. What's the average library stay? You say, well, what's the comfortable time that a person would need to be able to park there before they're charged?
Usually it's 3 hours, around 3 hours people.
3 hours. Okay, any other thoughts on parking? Because parking is always, in fact, I would say of all the libraries I've ever done, parking becomes the #1 issue, more than the technology or the collection or the service. So it's not an atypical thing to hear, but I always want to know, what's it going to take to make that happen? And obviously, we put parking as the free on-site parking as a priority. We can do that. But then some of these things that we have up on the screen, we wouldn't be able to do. So just like your comment of what's our priority is having a great kitchen that we have classes to teach cooking in. Is that higher or lower priority than say free parking that's directly above or below the building? And so that's part of the balance, obviously, because all this is about balance, because you're right, we can't do everything that's up on the screen because you can't afford to build it, you can't afford to operate it. So at some point, we can build free 4-hour parking, but then you got to figure out what you're going to have to give up to do that. But it's good to know at least what it's going to take. Let me ask you all another question. Are there programs in Richmond they could be really popular programs or programs that you think could be popular, but they just don't have space. They struggle. They're a great organization, but they just don't have space. Are there organizations like that you say, there was some way we could figure out how to have some of that space here in this building? Are there programs that you all think would be, the top 5 that you all think would be important?
You're talking about non.
Has nothing to do with the library, just some great, like, for instance, we did a library in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, and they wanted a new children and teens library. But we went out and the library couldn't afford to build one there. And we went out and, the community went out, and they teamed with a very active, amazing organization, it was the Children's Theater. And the Children's Theater came together with the Children's Library and Teens Library and created a $35 million building right in the heart of downtown. And now you've got all of this stuff with the gallery space, with activities, with drama, with yoga classes. It's all these things that relate to the library, but also partly a lot of the energy also came from that Children's Theater. So it had nothing to do with the library before that building happened. So things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are things that we can think about. I don't have any right now, but early you said, you made reference to, we have a lot of space. Do you think we have too much? What I have heard is that we might have too much, so it's on, maybe we can find some like-minded or complementary organizations to rent some space from us. So I think that's a good idea.
So the reason we're asking the question is we first want to know, is there that type of need in the community? And then if so, I said one of the things we're gonna figure out is how much space does the main library need to have in downtown Richmond? We don't know the answer to that. So if you all think of things after this meeting occurs, email Scott right there so that he can then share that idea with us. Anyone thoughts on that topic? Yes, sir.
Art 180 is a great organization. Art has facilities that were.
Art 180.
Art 180.
Any other programs?
Spark.
Spark?
Spark.
Tell me about Spark.
Spark is a performing arts student organization. I don't know if they have enough space or not.
Well, I do have to go back. Mentioned print. I think publishing, print / publishing, self-publishing. Some bookstores, a couple of others that don't have those machines that can buy people go to FedEx, that kind of thing. But for a library,
Great idea.
And they had that book that they just did as part of our collection and to build that up, that would be,
Other ideas? Someone that might need space?
Barbara just mentioned some of our writing organizations in the city.
James River Writers, and there's Young Richmond Writers. Again, I have no idea if they have things. Yeah.
I have friends needing more public space in the library. We have our space down here. Lots and lots of stuff, but we only open it up to the public. And we don't have enough office. Our files and things. We need a corner or a small dedicated space, whether it's actually room or not, but a more public space in the library.
So that was the next item on my list. So while you have the microphone, tell me more about what the Friends need, and tell me more about how they, what the ideal thing is of how they can be more interactive with the community. And then as a part of that, talk about the book sales, and because that obviously takes a lot of space, and so that needs to be thought about in our space program. So tell us, that's a lot of questions there, but tell us some of those things.
Yeah, and well, thinking about book sales, we have big sales a few times a year. And there was space previously for daily sales, which were smaller, that just people coming into the library, like, oh, that looks interesting. It would be. And I have, of course, in the back of my mind, what is one of the Seattle Public Library did years ago now with the movable shelving that it compacts itself into this closed up thing when it's not being used and so itself up when they're opening this up. And that is currently our main way of getting funding, so that why funding is not. But also that we have been in need of a volunteer board. We are all volunteer board. We don't have any staff, but we need, but people want to volunteer for the library. They want to volunteer for the Friends of the Library, and just a place in a space where we can coordinate that. And that, maybe a lot of these programs that get talked about can be done through volunteer work.
That's great. Let me ask you all a very important question. The more interaction, the better on this. So let's say at the end of this study, we've got a great vision. Everyone in this room and everyone in the community agrees with the vision. We have a concept design. We know how much it's going to cost. What is it going to take in Richmond, Virginia, to get a project like this funded? What's your thought on how we're going to be successful in making a master plan become reality? Advertising, okay.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, let's say we, at the end of this study, we have a great vision. We know how much it's going to cost. It's going to be, it would have an amazing impact on the community if we got it built. But now we've got to build it. We've got to get the political support. We've got to get the financial support. And so my question is, what do we need to do to get that political and that financial support? What's it going to take, do you think?
So as a member of the Library Foundation, when Richmond Public Library renovated the 8 branches, the mayor, so the mayor of the city of Richmond challenged the foundation an X number of dollars for the master plan. 2 phases of the master plan. This is actually what we're talking about now. Phase 1 was to renovate those 8 branches. So the mayor challenged the foundation to come up with half of the money. And then city government would match that funding. That's a big part of any, so suppose renovation of this building costs $20 million. How do you come to the foundation and say we need $20 million? So that was one way that it was addressed. The foundation was challenged by the politics in the city. The mayor supported it, and the mayor guaranteed the funding from the city of Richmond.
So for the foundation in that regard, then that was really all about philanthropy and individuals and other foundations that were contributing to the library foundation for that component. Is that correct?
Yeah, private citizens matching what the mayor was free to do to support the library system.
So what is it going to take in this master plan to make sure that individuals that are philanthropic or foundations that are philanthropic that might support the library, what do we need to do in the master plan that's going to gain interest from those individuals and groups?
So our Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Michael Paul Williams, talked about Richmond versus RVA. And RVA is the cool, funky hip. And then the Richmond is the people who actually need our service. And I think in order to do anything in Richmond, get everybody on board, you really have to marry those two, right? The people who are invested in RVA need to know that it's going to benefit them. And the people who are from Richmond need to know that it's going to benefit them. And that is not an easy job at all. Good luck.
Don't tell me that. You all are gonna have to do this, so.
So that was really a coded way of speaking. And it just seems to me that the guiding question is, who uses the library? Who needs the library? What is the purpose of the library? We'll do all these things. And they're all great ideas, but who really uses the library? Who is it for? So then I think, in terms of the overall community, and I think you're talking RVA, when I think this is, there's a strong business community here that says that they are committed to improving the lives of people who live here in Richmond. I think that we have to blatantly go to them and say, we need you to be on board, and this is what you get back. You get your name in the building, that you have a wall, you have the Dominion wall, or you have the Bank of America wall, you have this little area over here where kids can learn math by, that Wi-Fi cafe, and all those things, they need to know that their names count and that they are contributing to this. Because why else would they do this? But the people also, I think, need to feel that this is for them. So they have to buy into it. Because I think down the road, when you ask the city for money, people are going to say, well, I don't use the library that much, or we don't go that much. Why are we going to put money into the library when we really need money over here or over there? So I think that the people really have to say, this belongs to us, it's ours, and we want this money to be designated for. So I think that you got a really wonderful way of connecting those groups.
That's great. That's very helpful. So let me ask you all, the folks who might be, the individuals, the foundations, and the city leaders, do you think they need to be sold on who is using the library and what they're using it for? Because you're absolutely right. I'm amazed to this day that some of the communities we go into and the biggest leaders of that community may say, why do people need a library? I am shocked at the number of people that believe that. And then when you start showing them the data, showing them the facts, showing them, if you said to them, turn your computer off, throw your iPhone away, throw your iPad away, now live your life. Now imagine someone that doesn't have internet access, doesn't have that iPhone or that high-speed internet access, and try imagining them running their life. And it's really, that's an eye-opening experience, because I'm amazed at the number of people that don't realize there are a lot of people that don't have internet access. They can't imagine that someone doesn't have internet access. And that just is shocking. And so sometimes we have to help civic leaders, and I'm not saying that's the case here, I'm just saying this is what we've seen in other communities. Sometimes we have to help people understand how are people using the library, because you're right, they may not be using it themselves. So do you think that's an issue here, or tell me what you think about that topic.
So the 8 branches were renovation, and the Richmond Public Library to this day, the community supports. You showed it in your data, right, within a real thing. They love, the citizens of Richmond love their neighborhood library. That is why we have 8 renovated branches, because the public said, we don't want 2 behemoths. We don't want to be in Micro, we don't want to be in Chesterfield, where they build those tremendous, the new Colorado, or whatever it's called. They chose not to do that here. They did all kinds of charrettes. They did surveys, they did everything before they even renovated the 8 branches. It was years in the and the citizens said, no, we like our library. I live in the 4th district. That library is 4 cars to park. They love that library. They build their own rain garden. It's small, it's right next to a drugstore. They will never get rid of that library because it's a neighborhood flavor. It's popular, it serves the community. That's exactly what we're finding out about renovation. Now, people love this public library, so the support is there from the community, and that's what the politicians need to know, that the community loves the library. I think in terms of paying for it, the issue is How are we helping the citizens of Richmond with the renovation? What are we doing for the citizens? People love their libraries, okay, great. So what are we bringing to the table for the citizens? That's the argument I believe, that a council member, first they know the citizens want it, so they obviously going to say yes. But what are we bringing to the table for the people that are going to come to the library? And that's the hard job of narrowing it down. You can't, like you mentioned, can't have 50 million different things.
Right.
A swimming pool, a parking deck, you know, haunted house,
So let me ask you, on the idea, clearly, the community supported those branches, and that's how you got that funding.
and we support this library from your survey.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Yes.
So each of your branches have really wonderful, but sometimes small, children's components or teens components. So let me ask you, if the main library had the most awesome children's library that's known to the entire country, would those individuals that live where those branches are, would they on a weekend or on an evening or on a summer afternoon, would they come downtown and bring their kids if there was something really unique and special here that they couldn't get in their branches? Or are they only going to go to the branches?
If there's parking.
Free parking, 4 hours in the building. Okay, I got that.
It's true.
No, it's a good point.
One of the things I wanted to say, and I marked this earlier, at the very beginning of your presentation, you were talking about like maybe doing this in phases. And I can't speak to budgeting or anything like that, but I do know, like my feeling is that if this was done in phases, you know, politicians come in office and they go out of office. So if we're really making a campaign to talk people into this, and then we're going to do it in phases, I think you might lose some momentum. And I also worry that maybe you would lose some vision too, as people come in and out of office.
That's a great point. So I'm going to go to a new topic unless anyone has brilliant ideas of how we're going to fund this. I mean, these comments you all have already made are great, and these are super helpful and insightful.
Well, real quickly, as far as businesses, if they're on board, one, if we could build a casino, we could build a new library. And knowledge is freedom, and knowledge is power for individuals. So to build that, if we could data that you have, what books are people checking out there? Fiction, entertainment, whatever else that's doing some type of community enlightenment, or people starting their own businesses. Like, what is the data behind it to show them that we need a bigger space?
Okay, that's great. I have one last question for you. You all have a building that was built in 1929 that is encapsulated in the building that we now sit in. And if you were a visitor and you came to this building, you might not ever know that there was an old, historic, pretty wonderful building in the middle of this building, because when this building was designed, it just kind of wrapped it up and you wouldn't even know. My question to you, because you talk about the importance of history in Richmond, my question is that building something that is important to you all? Should it be more visible? Should people know that it's there? Or is it okay that it's just kind of hidden over there and it's just more space? It's just kind of, that square footage isn't any different than any other square footage. So I'm curious how you all think about that building and whether you think people even know about that building.
I did not.
Yep.
I did not.
Okay.
And I would, what?
Definitely needs to be showcased, because I have learned that some of the history behind it, as far as African Americans can come to the front door when they was, be able to get people to come in, and that's something that I think should be definitely highlighted, even posted or like a new event or something.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, you mentioned the building, within the building. There's also another building on the corner of First and Main Street. It's one of the oldest residents in the, one of the oldest buildings in Richmond. Inside building, but there is, I think that should be added to the conversation. It would complete the block, and it might also add something to this overall.
Great.
How is it currently used?
It's a law.
What's the law?
It's a law office on the corner of the, it's the Marcellus. On the building, architect, behind that building, and the historic buildings in Richmond. But it's not a part of this property. We share a parking lot with them, but that, right now, it's, if you look at it, it's a little, well.
I would say that, yeah, exteriorly, I'm not sure how you unwrap the old building, but interiorly, I think, you know, that architecture could be really highlighted in ways. I know there's been various discussions that people have, they love the kind of steampunkish aspect of the old stacks. And whether more space needs to be needed, that gets taken out or highlighted in some way. I wish it were as beautiful as like the, I forget what the library name is, the one of the like libraries at, structural stack system. That is really cool.
You have it?
There's a structural stack system, but it's not quite.
It's not quite.
And, but also that there are these little spaces that are just, you know, like elevator in the corner and that stairwell. It's always just dark. And it's like, could that be the cafe? Could that be, you know, some little resource center, help center area or something like that? So it seems like there's a little bit of a corner down here and then the first floor up there. And those doors just don't connect to anything. They just,
Okay, thank you. So we said we're going to do this all in an hour and a half. We're 1 minute late. But Marcus, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah.
Going back and maybe Julia can bring up the guiding principles again. And Marcus.
Yeah, no, that was a great discussion. I mean, it's always better to run late than be too early in the scenario. So that's fantastic. So as we pull up the guiding principles again, what do we think? I mean, do we still feel comfortable with what we discussed, the true reflection? I mean, we talked a little bit about that, a reflection of the real community, creating something that's welcoming and inclusive, modernizing the building. Doug, we just finished talking about, you know, building within a building. How do we unwrap it and expose some of that history? Creating an innovative leader for libraries nationwide, and then, of course, creating a sustainable design environment. I mean, what else? Do we change any minds? Are we comfortable? Do we, you know, are we all aboard? And then adding what we talked about, which you added at the beginning of the discussion. Is there anybody who wants to maybe change their mind, add anything else? We know parking is an issue. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I mean, and then the early discussion of transparency is the inside outside. When you're outside, you don't follow anything.
Or feel comfortable.
Yep.
When you're inside, you don't always see what's going on. And it's, yeah.
Yes. How do we connect the street with the library? Right now, the only way you see inside is, or even know what's going on, is to walk through the doors. But you know, we need to create a door fire. What else? All right. Hearing none. Is there anything else? Amanda? Oh,
There's a question here, will the slides be available? Will that continue virtually? Copy?
I do believe so. The slides will be available.
And then we're putting it on YouTube also.
Okay, thank you.
So this entire discussion will be on YouTube after we wrap up, and the slides will be available for anyone who wants to refer back. And again, as Doug mentioned earlier, if you go home tonight and as you fall asleep, think, I should have added that, please let us know. We're constantly interested in collecting data, collecting information, so, if anything comes up in the next week or two, or, you know, what have you, please feel free to let us know.
And I think Scott would be the person they should email.
Yes,
Or any staff, any library staff member, and they'll get it back to Scott.
Scott Firestein. Could you give him the microphone so everyone can hear this? Scott, SCOTT Firestein, FIRESTINE @richmondgov.com. And we'll make sure it's available. If you go to the library's website and send a message to the cyber librarian, it will get to me or it will get to all. Cyber librarian is an easier one to remember. So.
I just wanted to add one quick, or two things, actually. In your question about the funding, me being a project manager for the city, I want to stress that I feel personally very important that it's not phased in terms of the funding situation. Because there was a very good point that you brought up, and I'm glad someone did it, and it did come from me. Because when there is something that needs to be created for the city in terms of a larger project, there's always this piecemeal, and you're exactly right. Politicians come, politicians go, and what happens is that funding is trickling in and it takes forever to get it done. So I really appreciate your insight on that. My second thing is, I want to apologize for my phone calls and my ring doorbell. My AC went out, so I've been in contact with the company to try to get me back in service today. So I want to apologize for the scratch. Thank you much.
So thank you all for coming tonight. We really appreciate your involvement. The folks who are online, we appreciate you all being a part of this as well. And please be transparent. Tell us what you're thinking. And we'll have more meetings like this as well as in the future months. Thank you very much.